You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Unbiased Science, where we bring scientific method to the madness. I'm your host and public health scientist, Dr. Jess Steyer. And today I'm joined by a very special guest. We're going to talk about all things skin-related, cosmetic. We're going to talk about sunscreen. We're going to talk about all the things that I get questions about all the time, and I cannot wait to introduce my guest. Before I do, I actually have a little bit of a personal update, sort of a milestone I wanted to share with you all, that right after recording this, I'm actually running to vote in the local election here where I live in this small town in Western Mass, because I'm actually running for a seat on the Board of Health. And I'm super excited about it. I don't think I'm going to win. I'm running against someone who's been around for a very long time. A lot of people know him, but I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. It's actually the first contested election in our small town since 2016. So kind of cool. And I feel like I'm having my Leslie Knope moment. If you're a Parks and Rec fan, you'll get the reference. But anyway, that's enough about me. I want to introduce today's guest, Esther Olu, who you may know as the Melanin Chemist. Esther is an R&D formulation scientist, licensed esthetician, and science communicator who is a passionate advocate for dispelling misinformation within the beauty industry. She has helped bring creative cosmetic innovations from the lab to the shelves of retailers. Her expertise has been featured in many publications such as Vogue Business, Sunday Times, the Financial Times, and more, to educate and continually make a difference in the lives and skin health of many. Hello, Esther, and thank you for joining me today.
Hi, I'm so honored to be here.
So, Esther, before I get into questions, you just shared with me that you are pursuing your doctorate. Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background and what you hope to pursue in the future?
It's really funny because I told myself I was never going to do a PhD. I'm like, oh, they're too long. Like, I'm not going to do it. So I have a pretty extensive education. I did my undergraduate. I'm born and raised in California. I did my undergraduate at UC Riverside. I double majored in the chemistry, and I did liberal arts, which I know is like the completely opposite, but I like the best of both worlds. So I did media and cultural studies as well. After finishing that, I went to do my first master's in cosmetic science, which is the current field I'm in. After that, I got my aesthetics license. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm continuing going to school. So I wanted to focus on like the more business side of things, and marketing has such a huge impact on my industry. I think we can all agree how much marketing influences a lot of things. And I decided to do an MBA in project management and supply chain, as well as a master's in marketing, which I just finished.
So not ambitious at all.
Yes, not ambitious at all. So with this PhD, I wanted to really do an extension of my master's thesis, which is focused on hyperpigmentation and how to treat it. It is such a common skin condition in many skin tones, especially darker skin tones. So I'm hoping to see, ideally, other new innovations to treat it and hopefully make a discovery.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about that. So yes, going to pick your brain about hyperpigmentation for sure. So just to set the stage, so Esther, I read that you were born to Nigerian parents, and as you said, born and raised in Orange County, California. And you've said, and I was reading some articles that you've been interviewed for, all incredible, and I'll link a bunch in our show notes. But you said that there weren't many people in your community to represent beauty standards that would inspire you. I found this quote I wanted to share, and I'm hoping maybe you could just talk a little bit more about it. You said, "Growing up, my beauty lens was really limited. There wasn't a lot of diversity around me, and my family didn't emphasize beauty, so it wasn't until college that I started to pay attention." So what inspired you to become the Melanin Chemist, focus on skincare and sun protection? Like what sparked your interest in this field?
There's truly so many layers to this. So for me, I grew up in Orange County, California, and if anyone's familiar with Orange County, it's very predominantly like white, Hispanic, Latino, and Asian. So there really wasn't many people that looked like me. Going to high school, especially, I was one of the very few like Black people there, and I just didn't fit in, quote unquote. Going to college, it was, I would say, almost like the same, but there was like a little bit more diversity there. So I did see people that looked like me. But also that was like when I started to get into like skincare and like looking at the beauty YouTubers and all of that stuff, learning about makeup and all that. And I actually was on the path to go to med school. That was like what my parents wanted for me. And like Nigerian culture, if you're not doing like going to med school, doing engineering, you're considered like a failure, like really. And it's very like strict, like the immigrant culture. That's really like how it is there. And as I was going through my undergrad, I was like, I'm not passionate about this. Like, honestly, I'm not passionate about this. I just felt like I was going to be miserable as I was doing my classes. And I would consider myself like a Black sheep, especially like within my family. I do very unconventional, non-traditional things. And as I was finishing school, I was like, I don't aspire to do pharmacy school. I don't aspire to do med school. And I was thinking about what are the other things that I could do that are still science related, but just not those things, right? And one of my last classes was advanced organic chemistry. And I was like, okay, obviously you're synthesizing things or reversing them. And I was like, okay, obviously I like skincare, I like makeup. There's obviously a way that it's made, right? So I did my little research and I found out, okay, cosmetic science. That's how I came across the field. I was like, this is pretty interesting that, there's actual science behind our beauty products. And I found this one chemist. His name is Perry Romanowski, and he's still pretty big. Like I would say, is like the first influencer in like the cosmetic science industry. Took some webinars, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to learn more about this, which is like why I decided to do my master's degree, to get like a formal training, such understanding about the field. And truly, the rest was history. I was like, I'm passionate about this. And my social platform was just like it was initially just meant to be an outlet, just talking about, I'm learning this. I love this so much. And people just found me, and it kind of just went from there.
Yeah, no, your page is amazing. Esther posts videos regularly, really educational, informative, but like interesting and engaging, just fantastic content. Esther, can you, and obviously I'll say this again at the end of the episode, but where can people follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram, mostly Instagram. I have a TikTok, but I'm not super active. But it's at the Melanin Chemist.
Awesome. And I'll link to it in the show notes. All right. So let's get into it. So you have, well, first I want to talk about sunscreen and sun protection. So you've discussed the importance of melanin-friendly sunscreen. So what does this mean exactly? What should people look for in a sunscreen?
So when I'm saying melanin-friendly sunscreens, I'm talking about it not leaving a cast on the deeper skin tones. I think a lot of us have maybe accidentally or intentionally used a sunscreen and found out it is making me look purple, blue, super, super white. And that is really what happens with the mineral-based sunscreens. So when I'm saying melanin-friendly sunscreens, I'm mostly talking about chemical sunscreens, and these are the organic filters. So think like avobenzone, octisalate, oxybenzone, and so on and so forth. And those tend to, well, for one, they're soluble. So when you apply these filters on your skin, it's going to give you pretty much an invisible finish. When it comes to mineral sunscreens, those are not soluble. They are dispersed, suspended. They're literally like white powders, guys, and they're suspended. So they're not going to dissolve into your skin. They're going to be on top of your skin, which is like why you're having that cast. So your melanin-friendly sunscreens, or I'll say for any skin tone, are going to be like your chemical sunscreens.
Okay, so you answered my question, because I was going to ask you, so when you're reaching for sunscreen, are you reaching for chemical and mineral? And I'm so glad you shared that. There's a lot of fear-mongering on social media, I'm sure you've seen it, about chemical sunscreens in particular. And it's interesting that you just said, the chemical sunscreens are absorbed, whereas the mineral ones are sort of sitting on your skin. Mm-hmm. And I think that that idea of absorption is very scary for people. There is lots of misinformation about chemical sunscreens being linked to cancer, and actually people claiming that it's the sunscreen giving people skin cancer and not the sun exposure. So what would you say to people who say that?
It's so layered. Okay. It's really not sunscreen that's giving you cancer. So much technological advancement where we're able to detect cancer compared to back then. That's why it seems like the quote unquote the cancer rates are rising. We're just advancing as a society to be able to detect rates and have people live longer compared to when literally decades ago. Also, I understand, like you mentioned, that it sounds very scary when we're hearing about absorption, but it's really important to distinguish that something being absorbed doesn't mean that it's harming you. We have a pretty, I would say, a lot of advanced organs in our body that are excreting these things out. They're not staying in our body. And when we think about toxicology, the aggregated exposure, when we're adding all of these things up together, there are toxicologists that are looking at the safety limits about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And they're setting, okay, this limit is okay. Anything past that is not okay. So very important to remember, absorption doesn't mean harm. Okay, so very important to remember that. And then correlation does not equal causation. Very important to remember that as well. So please rest assured.
Love it. Now, is there a certain SPF that you reach for? I think I've seen some people say, anything above 30 or something like that, doesn't matter. Do you reach for a certain SPF number?
So I typically go for SPF 50. However, I have SPF 30s as well. Because I do have a platform, I do get tons of PR. For me, any sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. So I don't want to be so nitpicky about it. I think SPF 30 should be like the baseline for anybody, and broad spectrum. So when I say broad spectrum, you want to protect yourself from the UVA radiation, which are the radiation that's commonly associated with aging, and UVB radiation, which is most commonly associated with burning. So we want to make sure that you're finding sunscreens that protect on both ends of the spectrum. Like I said, I like SPF 50s, but ultimately, as long as you choose a sunscreen, I'm happy.
So there is this article that came out. We just spoke about it briefly before we hit record, and neither of us actually read it in full. I just saw it. It just popped up on my, Instagram when I was scrolling this morning about, I think it was published in The Atlantic, and it was something about how we're almost like overemphasizing the dangers of sun exposure, and maybe we can lay off the sunscreen a little bit. Like we're going too hard for sunscreen, and scientists need to take a different approach to messaging. Again, please don't quote me on that. I will find the article and I will post it to show notes. But Esther, you said something that I thought was really, just spot on. Can you share your response to that?
Yes. So a common misconception about sunscreens is that they are 100% protecting you. That is not true. You're still letting in about roughly 3 to 5% of UV. This does depend on the SPF number that you're getting. The higher the number goes, I would say the higher the number goes, the less UV you are getting, but you're still going to be getting UV. And
Got it.
People like to call sunscreen sunblock, as in they're blocking all of UV. That is a banned term in the US. You cannot use that because, again, you're still letting UV hit your skin. So you're still synthesizing vitamin D, which is a common misconception. If you wear sunscreen, you're still going to get vitamin D. You might still get like a small tan, possibly if you're like laying out in the sun all day, but you're still getting protection compared to if you were not wearing sunscreen. Do I think that there's some professionals that are kind of extreme? Yes, but that doesn't define all of the professionals. You know what I mean?
So true. It's funny because I do see some people who it's literally like you'd think it's almost like vampire. Yeah. They'll go outside and they're slathered in sunscreen, great, but then they're also wearing a hat and a scarf, holding an umbrella. And I don't want to poo-poo that. Everyone has different risk thresholds, risk, factors, family histories, all that stuff. So I really do get it. But sometimes when I see that level of extreme, I think that speaks to what you were just saying. So makes total sense to me. All right. let's move on to talk about cosmetics and skincare. Esther, you shared that you've done some research on hyperpigmentation. This is a concern for many people, especially those with darker skin tones. So can you explain some different types of hyperpigmentation and some effective ways to address this issue?
Yes. So there's two main types of hyperpigmentation that I would say are like the most common. The first one is post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So this condition in particular happens when there's like a certain trauma to the skin. So it could be a cut, a bug bite, a burn, you getting acne, and what's left over after you get that. And that what ends up as a result for that inflammation is that you get dark marks. And you have the other one, which is called melasma. And melasma, I would say, is like more common in women. That one is more genetic / hormonal. And that one is a little bit more difficult to treat. But overall, the strategies when it comes to treating hyperpigmentation, from what my research was on, is that it should be treated from three angles. You want to treat it from starting before the melanin synthesis process, during the melanin synthesis process, and after the melanin synthesis process. So what that means is that you're targeting it from all three angles to not necessarily speed up the process, but to have a more multifaceted targeted approach. Mm-hmm. So when I say before melanin synthesis, you want to use ingredients like N-acetylglucosamine or like tretinoin, your retinoids. And then during the process, you want to use ingredients like called tyrosinase inhibitors. Tyrosinase is the key enzyme that is causing the melanin synthesis process. So ingredients like licorice root extract, hydroquinone is not prescription only, unfortunately, but what else? Kojic acid. Ingredients like that are like during the process, and then after that process is done, you want to use like ingredients like exfoliants to shed your skin cells off, sunscreen to prevent the process from being exacerbated, niacinamide, ingredients like that. So using a combination of all of that is the best way to go about treating.
Oh, that's so interesting. And I remember when I was pregnant, I had a little bit of melasma on my like upper lip, and I was like pretty self-conscious of about it. So these are really helpful tips. All right. So let's move on. Sorry, I have a list of questions that I want to ask Esther. All right. I want to talk about preservatives. Let's talk preservatives. So can a product be adequately preserved without preservatives, without a product?
So I know it may sound like I'm about to say no, but actually in reality, it actually can be adequately preserved without a preservative. And the reason why is they're called hurdle technology. And with hurdle technology, you're setting up all these barriers that microbes do not like to prevent them from growing. So that could be a very low pH or a very high pH. That could be the no presence of water, so anhydrous, excuse me. That could be using a high percentage of alcohol. So using a combination of these types of techniques prevents organisms from growing. So technically using that would prevent microbes from growing and would prevent you from not using preservatives. But I still recommend using preservatives because it's just like a safeguard. It's like a safeguard. And you don't know how a consumer is going to use a product once it gets into their hands, you know?
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because from a marketing perspective, I see so many products like proudly boasting preservative-free. And for me, that's a red flag. I want my preservatives. I don't want mold. I don't want all of those things growing. But that's interesting to know that there are some alternatives. There are some ways to formulate that can protect the products. But it sounds like I'm
very much pro-preservative.
Okay, love it. All right. So I don't know if y'all are watching on video right now, but I'm staring at Esther and her beautiful skin, and I'm mortified that I'm on camera next to you right now. So I have to ask you, do you have a holy grail product? Is there a certain ingredient that you think is like underrated?
Underrated? Wow, I would say, even though it's not necessarily treating anything per se, I would say glycerin is like the most basic ingredient, but it is so versatile. It's so versatile. I feel like hyaluronic acid gets all of the love because it sounds nice. It sounds very nice. It rolls with the tongue nice. And, it's in all these marketing and all that. But glycerin is, in my opinion, a better hydrator than hyaluronic acid. It does so much for the skin, especially when it's used at very, very high levels. And it's very conditioning. So I think it's an unsung hero. It needs a lot more love, but I'm loving that I'm seeing more brands starting to use more of it in their products.
Ooh, love that.
I'm trying to think of a holy grail product. That's really, why is it so hard for me? There's actually this toner, this Korean toner essence that I really, really like. It's called Pyunkang Yul, and it's their essence toner. I've been using that since I was in undergrad. Ooh. One of the first stores that I worked for was a Korean beauty brand, and I liked it a lot. Yeah, so I love Korean skincare.
I'm going to have to search for that and order it immediately.
I'll send you the link to it.
Please do. Please do. Okay, let me see here. There's so much I want to pick your brain about. Okay, are there certain ingredients or claims or whatever that you avoid? Like if you see that this is being marketed in a particular skincare line, that you do not reach for it?
I don't think there's anything I've ever avoided. And the reason why is because I'm really lucky where I don't have sensitive skin. I don't have reactive skin. So I can pretty much use anything with no issue. And ideally, I love to avoid the brands that use sulfate-free and chemical-free and all that stuff. But we have to be honest, where all these brands are starting to use that nowadays because they're just trying to sell their products. And I need to do my makeup and my skincare. So it's almost like a pick your poison type of thing. And as much as I hate the marketing, I still just use what works the best for me.
Got it. Well, and I'm so glad that you brought up the marketing, because so much of this is marketing. And I think it's really cool that you went and actually specialized in marketing as part of your education and your training. And chemical free always kills me, because what the heck does that even mean?
I know,
everything is a chemical. It literally makes no sense. Clean beauty is another major pet peeve of mine. What does clean mean? There's no definition for that.
Exactly.
That's a pet peeve. But so I was actually going to ask you that I see so many products, again, boasting that they're sulfate free or silicone free. So can you explain why that is not a good thing?
So when we think about the psychology of free from claims, what brands are essentially doing is they're trying to tell you that sulfates and silicones, that these ingredients are a threat to you. They're a threat to you in some way, shape, or form. And when they use these claims, what they're trying to say is I'm trying to direct you away from that threat and make my product your little safe haven. And it kind of tweaks your mindset to think, okay, if I buy these products to say sulfate-free and silicone-free, I'm going to be safe, and these brands care about my health, when that's really not the case. They're just trying to sell a product to you.
Right.
Sulfates are fine. I know people say it's really harsh and stripping, and yes, that can be true. Do not get me wrong, but that applies for really any ingredient and what concentration that is being used at. And so on and so forth. Same thing with silicones. I mean, silicones are a great skin protectant, and your skin is still going to quote unquote breathe using silicones. They're not bad at all. So it's really important to understand how impactful language is, especially when it comes to marketing.
Oh, my goodness. I'm obsessed with you. Yes, all of this. So I saw that you did, you did a video about this, I think, or there was a post. I saw something on your page, and I'd love for you to speak about this. The trend of people doing makeup or, skincare while they're on a plane, mid-air. This is a hot thing right now. What do you make of this trend? Is it a good idea to do your skincare, do your makeup while on a flight, or maybe not so much?
So personally, I'm not a fan of it, and it's because airplanes are dirty. I don't think people understand how dirty airplanes are, also how dry they are. They're super, super dry, super, super dirty. It's very, very low humidity, so it's essentially drying your skin out, and it's just not clean. It's not clean, and I just can't imagine just touching your face and doing all that while on a plane where it's just not hygienic, in my opinion. I understand why people do it, It's for content. It looks very engaging and entertaining. I completely get it. But from like my standpoint, I like to do my routine before I get on the plane and just make sure my skin is protected. And that's it. I will add the caveat. So if it's a super, super long flight, if it's like an 18+ hour flight, I completely understand because that's a day. I've been on a flight that long when I went to Indonesia last year. So, and I was like, you know what? I kind of regret not getting up to like wash my face or apply more sunscreen or something. So I get it.
Okay. All right. I like that response. All right. Now, shifting gears, I want to talk about shade ranges. And you did a really incredible reel, which I'm going to link in our show notes, about the lack of inclusivity and representation in some product lines, specifically certain foundations. I know there was a brand, and I'm blanking on the name, but I'm sure you'll know it, that they received a lot of backlash because their darkest shade was really not dark at all. And then they almost like overcorrected and put something out that, I'm botching it. Can you tell, what is the issue? And can you just take us through this, the lack of shade ranges?
Yeah. So historically, there really just hasn't been good inclusivity when it comes to like color cosmetics, especially when we think about like foundations and concealers, etc., where people with like darker complexions could not find their shades in stores. They had to try and buy their shades online. And it is so difficult to try and buy your shade online. It's like literally, it's very hit or miss. So I would say with the onset of Fenty Beauty, a lot of conversations were changing, seeing about 50+ shades of foundation. That was like not the norm. And I would say Fenty Beauty, Rihanna, her brand, it really changed the dialogue about making more inclusivity, like a standard, not an afterthought. So this brand, named Euphoria, they came out with their foundations. This happened, I believe, last year. The shade range was not good. I do want to clarify, they're not the only brand that has done this before. They got like a lot of backlash, and they claimed that this initial launch was like a proof of concept to see how it would be received by the general public before they would extend the shade ranges. But it's like, that doesn't really make any sense because you have like a target market. Wouldn't you want to test it on them first on all these skin tones before you launch the product? Didn't really make sense. And then months later, after that first set of backlash, they came out with more shades, which you would think is good. But as you said, it was like an overcorrection because the darkest shade wasn't even using all of the standard pigments that you technically use to make a foundation. They were just using white and black. So it was a very deep shade of gray. No one is that color. Everybody has undertones. Undertones are like the underneath color that everybody has. Some are warmer, like me, yellow, red. Some are cooler, bluish. Some are olive, and that foundation shade was just, I can't even call it a shade. It was literally just like a deep shade of gray.
Right.
So they missed the mark again. They've been quiet ever since.
I was going to ask you, have they responded?
No.
And interesting.
Like retailers are pulling them off their shelves, and so far it's been 2, Credo and there was one other, I forgot who it was, but there's another retailer, and now people are trying to get Ulta to remove them from like the shelves as well.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the videos that I saw, it's people were taking just like black paint that they were buying and putting it on their skin, and then putting this product next to it and just showing. I mean, it was basically identical.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I know. As Esther, I think, and correct me if I'm mistaken, in the video that you put out on this topic, you were showing is it 4 or 5 different, like, I'm probably going to use the wrong terms, but like base colors that are like mixed to create foundation. Is this sounding familiar? It was like red. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Of course. So when it comes to making foundations, they use iron oxide. So when I'm saying iron oxides, so we talked about sunscreen earlier. Sunscreen also uses iron oxide, specifically titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. So there's like some things that are very similar here. So when it comes to color cosmetics, they use black iron oxide, yellow iron oxide, and red iron oxide. So things are advancing in industry where different colors called chromium oxide green and ultramarine blue are being used too. And that actually helps you to make a very, I would say, more diverse ranges of undertones and shades. So as I mentioned, Euphoria, for that very last shade, only used black and white. Oh, I forgot to mention titanium dioxide. I'm sorry. But that's also another one that's used and to make foundations as well.
And that's the white.
Yes, that's
right?
the white.
Is that, right. Okay. And it's so funny because titanium dioxide has been in the news for the past few years. Lots of fear about it causing cancer. And I'm using, my little air quotes here.
Yes.
We have to go back to the dose makes the poison, right? And the amount of titanium dioxide that we're exposed to in our cosmetics or in things like period products, like tampons. There was a lot of concern. Yes, it's used to color the products white, right? So there's a lot of concern about it being carcinogenic. Anything is carcinogenic in a certain amount. The amount that we're exposed to in these products is low and is not shown to have any link to, to causing cancer in humans. So I just wanted to chat about that
Very
a little bit.
PSA.
Yes, PSA, don't fear titanium dioxide. All right. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about that. I think it's a really important issue. All right. So what are some exciting developments or trends in skincare for melanin-rich skin and skincare in general that maybe we should know about?
So as much as there's a lot of difficulty with sunscreens, like particularly mineral sunscreens, I would say that companies are aware of this, like the people that actually make the ingredients, and they're trying to find strategies to make the appearance of the white cast a little bit better. So, having like tinted options. So like using the iron oxides, as I mentioned, making the particle sizes smaller. That also helps with the white cast. On the chemical filter side, in the US, very exciting news. We are so close to getting a new filter approved that is commonly used in Europe and Asia. So we're so close to getting one of them approved, which will be good for us. And we'll have new formulations that are hopefully cosmetically elegant in the US. Is there anything else I would say? Sunscreen-wise, those are like the most exciting to me. I did see actually that I believe it was La Roche-Posay, I believe, came out with a new ingredient called Malazzo to treat hyperpigmentation. So they claim that they've been working on this for I think over 10 years. So I'm very interested in that because that was my thesis work. So I'm like, okay, I'm so interested to learn more about it.
How cool is that? That's awesome. Yeah, because people are always saying that skincare, especially sunscreens, are so much better, in Europe and in Asia. I mean, you were mentioning some of the Korean lines. So that's really interesting. I'm curious to see if that gets approved here in the US and how that changes the landscape of products.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm curious, are you someone who thinks that well, okay, let's say there's someone who is sort of new to skincare, wants to sort of, dabble and try out some new products. Do you think that, well, I have a few different questions. One, do we need to spend a lot of money to get high quality products, or are there like drugstore dupes or products that are, that will do just fine? And two, do we need a lot of products, or are there just a few staples that we need to get the job done?
I'm very passionate about this topic. So, a common misconception that I will probably continue seeing for the rest of my life is that price means quality or effectiveness, and that is not true. Their brands mark up the prices of their products. That should be common knowledge. I'm not saying it is common knowledge, but it should be common knowledge. Brands mark up the price of what it costs, what a product actually is. And you can find great products in the drugstore, just as you can find expensive products in the luxury stores. But it doesn't mean that one isn't worth it and one is worth it. What is worth it is very subjective to you and personal to you. You can find great products anywhere. It's really, truly trial and error. Two, you do not need a lot of products. I know people have very extensive, the 10 product K beauty routines and all that stuff. You do not need all of that. It is so important to stick to the basics. All you really need is a cleanser moisturizer and sunscreen. If you have skin concerns, like if you have acne, if you have hyperpigmentation, or whatever your skin concern can be, then you want to look at the more targeted, like serums and all that stuff that is going to address your skincare concerns. But it doesn't mean that you need a single product for every concern. Try to find products that target multiple concerns, so that way you're not spending all this money and not seeing like the results that you want to see.
This is great for me to hear. So I'm pushing 40. My skin is definitely changing. People like to write to me sometimes to tell me that I would benefit from Botox and all.
Oh my goodness.
People are so kind on the internet. I mean, yeah, I have my skin is aging. I'm a human aging woman. You know what I mean? But I am susceptible to a lot of the marketing. I totally get it. I'm putting all these serums and tinctures. Like, I don't even know what I'm putting on my face. And I feel like I'm probably combining things that maybe shouldn't be combined or putting I don't know. I get it. For those who are listening who are susceptible to this marketing stuff, I get it. But from what you're saying, Esther, what I've heard from others and dermatologists is that, first of all, you don't need to spend a lot of money. I mean, my, is it CeraVe? That's like my favorite moisturizer. I get it at the drugstore. You got to buy what works for your skin. You don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money. And a lot of times we're overdoing what we're putting on our skin, right? And just real quickly, last question, and then I'll stop talking. Is there a certain order? Like, actually, no. Here's my question. Slugging. I feel like that's the new thing, that you put a layer of like a Vaseline or something like that on your face at the very end of your skincare routine. Like, can we just talk a little bit about the order of things and slugging? And are you sealing in the benefits of skincare when you slug? So,
petrolatum, what Vaseline uses, and like CeraVe, for example, it is like the gold standard occlusive. So when I'm saying occlusive are the things that are really sealing in like the moisture. Our skin loses water every day. Our skin is literally losing water as we're talking like right now. That's really what helps the skin function. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but we also don't want our skin to like lose too much water, because that's how our skin gets dry and leads to other skin conditions. So using occlusives like Vaseline is great. However, not everybody needs it. Especially if you have acne. You're not trying to trap the acne. You're trying to exacerbate the acne. So if your skin's really dry, like if it was like winter and like snowing and very, very dry, it doesn't hurt to slug and to have that extra layer of like protection to like seal in the moisture. Or if you like have like a scrape or like a cut, it doesn't hurt to apply Vaseline. But do you need to do it every day to like seal in the moisture? No, just use a regular moisturizer. You're doing fine. I'm like, doing fine that way. That's what moisturizers are supposed to function as. They have a combination of like occlusives and emollients, so what helps make the skin feel smooth, and like the hydrators in it. So slugging, it's not as necessary as people make it out to be. When it comes to skincare order, there's really like no hard and fast rules, but like the guideline is to use it from like thinnest to thickest. But for some people, they may mix it up. You're not going to die if you switch like the order of like some of your products. You'll be okay. But just the general guideline, thinnest to thickest.
Love this. Love this. Love all of this. Esther, thank you so much for joining me today. Just props to you. Everything you're doing. You're so amazing, so ambitious. You're doing such incredible things. Everyone needs to go right now and follow Esther. Esther, can you remind us where we can follow along?
Yes, you can find me at the Melanin Chemist on Instagram and TikTok. I need to do better about going on TikTok. I'll get on that. Yeah.
Maybe we can motivate each other to do some TikToks. Well, thank you again. Thank you all for tuning in today, for listening. Please, if you like what you've heard here, please leave a review. That goes a very long way when it comes to podcasts, especially written reviews, by the way. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's free. You can subscribe at theunbiasedscipod.substack.com. There is a paid subscription available if you're able and willing to provide financial support. That goes a really, really long way. So thank you so very much. And also check out my other podcast, Bites of Health. That's Bites with a Y. It airs daily, 5-minute long episodes, answer commonly asked pediatric questions. So if you're a parent or soon to be parent or just curious about pediatric health, definitely go check it out. And you can follow along at Bites of Health Pod on Instagram. Again, that's Bites with a Y. Thank you all for tuning in for No Nonsense, Just Science.